My name is Ava, and what happened last month taught me that the most profound victories aren't won with raised voices, but with quiet, deliberate actions that rewrite the entire narrative. Have you ever walked into a room and a scent just instantly takes you back for me? It's the smell of old turpentine and drying oil paint. That was my Aunt Clara's studio, the only place I ever felt truly seen. A stark contrast to my family's home where I was just the quiet, less shiny version of my sister, Chloe. So when my aunt left me that studio, her life's work, I thought I'd finally found my place, but my family saw it differently. They saw $1 million asset for my sister's brand and gave me an ultimatum: sell the house to fund her dream, or be disowned. They thought they had me cornered, but they never imagined her own CEO had already answered my call first. Growing up, I was the responsible one, the practical one. My achievements were met with a simple nod, as if they were inevitable, like the sun rising. I remember my 10th birthday. I had asked for a specific set of encyclopedias, the kind with the detailed illustrations of historical artifacts. I dreamed of the worlds inside them. On my birthday morning, I was presented with a sensible beige sweater. Later that day, Chloe, who was 7, threw a tantrum because she wanted a pony. There was no pony, of course, but my parents spent the rest of the day consoling her, taking her out for ice cream and buying her a giant, fluffy unicorn that was bigger than she was. My forgotten encyclopedias and the itchy sweater became a perfect metaphor for my childhood. My needs were practical and therefore invisible. Chloe's wants were emotional and therefore paramount. This dynamic solidified as we grew older. My college graduation is a memory seared into my mind with the quiet sting of humiliation. I had earned my degree in art history with honors, juggling 2 part-time jobs to avoid crippling student loans. During the celebratory dinner at a noisy restaurant my parents had chosen, the diploma I'd worked relentlessly for 4 years to achieve lay on the edge of the table. At some point, a waiter, clearing away dishes, placed a sweating glass of iced tea directly on top of it, leaving a damp, circular stain on the thick paper. No one noticed. The entire conversation was dominated by Chloe's upcoming trip to Bali, which she had won in some online social media contest that involved her followers voting for her. My father was loudly explaining the concept of engagement metrics to my bewildered grandparents. It wasn't malicious, it was worse. It was a complete, thoughtless erasure. I was the background radiation of the family, a constant, stable presence that required no attention because I was never the main event. Chloe, on the other hand, was the spectacle. Her life was a series of glittering moments curated for an online audience, funded by our parents. I once brought home a small framed sketch I had bought with my first paycheck as an art appraiser. It was a modest piece by a local artist, but I was intensely proud of it. The first piece of real art I had ever owned. I showed it to my mother, my heart thumping with a silly, hopeful excitement. She glanced at it, her eyes flicking over it without truly seeing it, before saying, "That's nice, dear. Did you see the beautiful leather handbag your father and I bought for Chloe? It's for her upcoming collaboration with a resort wear brand. The handbag, which I later saw in one of Chloe's videos, cost more than my monthly rent." I learned then that my value was in being self-sufficient and quiet, while Chloe's value was in her endless, expensive, and highly visible needs. I was the sturdy, load-bearing foundation, and she was the glittering facade they constantly polished for the world to admire. The only person who saw past that was my Aunt Clara. Her studio in Santa Fe wasn't just a building, it was a living, breathing extension of her soul. The walls were covered in her vibrant, chaotic canvases, some towering and majestic, others small and intimate. The air was a unique perfume of linseed oil, clay, coffee, and the faint, sweet smell of the desert sage that grew wild outside her door. She never asked about my job promotions or my savings account. Instead, she'd hand me a lump of clay and say, "Show me what frustration feels like." She taught me that the value of a thing wasn't its price, but the story it told, the piece of a soul embedded within it. It was Clara who encouraged my love for art history, who told me that being an appraiser wasn't a boring job, but the sacred work of a detective uncovering hidden histories and forgotten truths. When she passed away, The silence she left behind was a physical presence. I returned to her studio to sort through her life, a task my parents had declared too morbid and dusty. It was during that quiet, painful inventory, surrounded by the ghosts of her creativity, that I found a letter tucked inside a worn copy of Ways of Seeing. Her familiar, elegant scrawl covered the page. My dearest Ava, if you are reading this, it means I finally mixed my last color. Do not mourn me with tears, but with purpose. This house, this beautiful mess, is now yours. It is a promise. It is the culmination of a life lived without compromise. I know your parents will not understand this gift. They see value only in things that can be sold. You, my dear, see what is priceless. Never let them sell its soul for something as cheap as money. Reading those words, I felt her presence beside me, a silent affirmation of the fight I didn't yet know was coming. The phone call from my father came the day after the will was officially read by the lawyer. I was sitting on the studio floor, dust motes dancing in the afternoon sun. When his name flashed on my screen, I let it ring 3 times before answering. Taking a deep, fortifying breath, there were no condolences, just business. "Ava," he said, his voice tight with an energy I recognized as barely concealed excitement. "We need to be practical about this. The lawyer mentioned the appraisal value. That's a life-changing amount of money. A real windfall." I could hear my mother chirping her agreement in the background. "It's Aunt Clara's home," I said quietly, my voice sounding small in the vast high-ceilinged room. "It's a property," he corrected instantly, his tone sharp. "A valuable, unleveraged asset. And Chloe has been looking for seed money for her new lifestyle platform. This is perfect timing. It's a sign." I closed my eyes, a familiar weariness washing over me. He truly, genuinely believed that my inheritance, my aunt's entire life's work, was a convenient sign from the universe for my sister's benefit. He went on, his voice gaining momentum as he warmed to his own irrefutable logic, outlining how the sale of my inheritance would be the perfect, frictionless launchpad for my sister's next venture. He talked about market trends and capital gains, words that felt like sacrilege in the sacred space Clara had built. The pressure campaign began the very next day. It was a coordinated emotional siege, executed with practiced precision. Chloe started the mornings with a barrage of texts, links to gleaming, soulless Los Angeles penthouses captioned with emojis and hashtags like #manifesting and #sistergoals. Then, around mid-morning, my mother would call. Her voice was a masterclass in passive aggression, a weapon wrapped in velvet. "Hello, darling," she'd begin, her tone sweet and concerned. "I was just on the phone with Chloe, and her ideas for this new platform are just, well, they're revolutionary. She's going to empower so many women. We were just saying how wonderful it is that you're in a position to help her make it a reality. This isn't just for her. You know, when she succeeds, the whole family succeeds. It's for all of us." I was meant to feel that my hesitation, my desire to honor my aunt's dying wish, was a selfish act of sabotage against the entire family's future. The breaking point came via a single text message from my father late one night. I had spent the day ignoring their calls, trying to find a sliver of peace. The message arrived after midnight, its stark white bubble glowing in the darkness of my room. It was blunt, a tool honed for maximum impact, stripped of all artifice. "We are your parents. We have given you everything. We are not asking for much. Now we are asking for this one thing for your sister. Either you sell the house and give the money to Chloe, or don't ever call me father again." The words were cold, hard, and utterly final. It was the verbalization of the conditional love I had always received. They were demanding I sacrifice my past, my sanctuary, and my future for her fleeting, digitally enhanced present. I sat there in the dark, the phone heavy in my hand, and I felt not sadness, but a strange, clarifying calm. The board was set. The pieces were in play. They had made their move. Now, it was my turn. They had finally said the quiet part out loud, and in doing so, they had given me my answer. My subsequent silence was misinterpreted as weakness. The campaign escalated with an alarming new strategy. One morning, an email landed in my inbox. The sender was a high-end agency, Santa Fe Luxury Estates. The subject line read, "Getting the ball rolling for you." My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened it to find a meticulously prepared exclusive brokerage agreement. My name, my details, the legal description of Clara's property, it was all there. I scrolled down, my blood turning to ice, and saw the email signature. It was from my mother. "I figured I'd just help you get started. Honey," she'd written, "I took the liberty of reaching out to the best agent in Santa Fe. She's very motivated to get us the best price. Fast." My own mother, acting as my representative without my knowledge or consent, had contacted a realtor and initiated the process of selling my home. The violation was so profound, so utterly dismissive of my autonomy, that it stole my breath. It was the ultimate expression of their belief that I did not own my own life. That's when I remembered Julian Croft. Aunt Clara spoke of him often, her voice holding a rare warmth. He was a collector, a quiet force who had recognized her genius early on. More than that, they had become friends, correspondents in a long, thoughtful conversation about art and life that spanned decades. A quick, frantic search confirmed he was the CEO of Croft Media Group, the very conglomerate that had just signed Chloe to a lucrative six-figure advertising contract. It was a long shot, a desperate prayer, but it was the only move I had. I drafted an email to his executive office. I didn't mention my family. I simply introduced myself as Clara's niece and the inheritor of her estate, and proposed a brief meeting to discuss a legacy preservation project that I believed would be of mutual interest. His executive assistant, a woman named Eleanor, replied within the hour, "Mr." Croft remembered my aunt with great fondness. He could see me in New York the day after tomorrow. While my parents thought I was wavering, I was packing a small suitcase, a portfolio of my aunt's most personal work sketches, letters, and photographs in my carry-on. The Croft Media headquarters was a towering glass monolith designed to make a person feel small. But Julian Croft's office was a sanctuary of art. And there, on the wall directly behind his desk, was one of Clara's most powerful paintings, a swirling, emotional landscape of color and light that I had watched her create years ago. He was an older gentleman with kind, intelligent eyes that seemed to see more than you were showing. He didn't sit behind his desk, but met me at a small seating area. "She was a true original," he said, handling the sketches in my portfolio with a reverence my own family had never shown my feelings. "She saw the world differently." I took a deep breath and laid out my vision. My voice, shaky at first, gained strength as I spoke. I told him everything: my parents, the pressure, Chloe's brand, my aunt's letter. I told him I didn't just want to save the studio. I wanted to transform it into the Clara Foundation, a residency and gallery for emerging female artists, a place that would honor her spirit of fierce independence. He listened without interruption, his gaze never leaving my face. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. He walked to the window overlooking the city. "Clara and I wrote to each other for 30 years, he said softly, his back to me. "She spoke of you often, her kindred spirit. She called you. She worried about you. She would have hated, truly hated, the idea of her home being sold to fund something so ephemeral." He turned back to me, a decision clear in his eyes. "My family's philanthropic trust will acquire the property. We will offer you double the current market appraisal to give you complete financial independence from your family. The trust will then fund and operate the Clara Foundation in perpetuity. And you, Miss Ava, will be its first salaried director and on-site curator. You will live there, rent-free, for as long as you hold the position." It wasn't just a solution. It was a form of poetic justice so perfect, it felt as if Clara herself had orchestrated it from beyond. While I was in New York, my family was preparing their final ambush. My mother called to announce a small get-together at the studio on Saturday. "A celebration for the future," she chirped, her voice dripping with false sincerity. It was a trap, and we both knew it. "I'll be there." I said calmly. I returned to Santa Fe on Friday night, the ironclad legal documents from Mr. Croft's lawyers in my bag. The studio felt different, no longer heavy with grief, but electric with possibility. On Saturday, I watched from the upstairs window as my parents' wealthy friends arrived. My father played the gracious host, and Chloe was live streaming, twirling through the studio. "Hey guys," she chirped to her phone. "We're here at this amazing creative space, and we're about to make a huge family announcement. It's all about supporting each other's dreams. You know." I walked down the stairs at the moment the drama was intended to peak. The real estate agent stood beside my father, who held a pen and a contract. "Ava, darling," my mother announced loudly, "we are all so proud of you for making the right decision." My father stepped forward. "Sign it, and we can put this unpleasantness behind us." Chloe had her phone pointed directly at my face, a smug, triumphant smile on her lips. At that exact moment, a hush fell over the room. A fleet of sleek black cars had pulled up. Julian Croft stepped out, followed by his legal team. He walked in with an air of quiet authority that immediately silenced the room. He nodded politely to me before turning to my father. "Mr." Croft gently took the tacky for sale sign from the corner and handed it to an associate. In its place, another associate produced a beautifully engraved bronze plaque. My father stammered, his face turning a blotchy red. "Who are you? This is a private party." "I am Julian Croft," he said, his voice calm but resonant. "And this is no longer your party. It is my property. Or rather, the property of a trust I manage." He then turned his gaze to Chloe, who had frozen, her phone still recording. "Chloe, isn't it?" he said. "You see, the Croft Family Trust has just acquired this building to establish the Clara Art Foundation." He gestured to the bronze plaque now being affixed to the wall. "Furthermore," he continued, his tone becoming serious, "an internal review has found that your personal brand's recent activities, which have been brought to our attention, are in direct conflict with our company's ethics clause regarding family coercion and public misrepresentation. Your contract with Croft Media Group is being officially placed under review, pending termination." The sound my mother made was a strangled gasp. My father's face went white. Chloe's phone slipped from her grasp and clattered to the floor, the screen shattering. The assembled guests began to murmur, backing away as if the family were radioactive. "Mr." Croft's lawyer stepped forward, his voice cool and professional. "We will need all non-essential personnel to vacate the premises," he announced. My parents, who had tried to force me from my home, were now being politely but firmly escorted out like trespassers. The aftermath was swift. Chloe's contract was terminated a week later. Her brand, exposed and without its primary source of funding, crumbled into obscurity. My parents, disgraced, sold their house and moved to a small town in Arizona. I never spoke to them again. There were no angry calls, no final goodbyes. They simply vanished from my life, erased by the consequences of their own actions. I poured my heart into building the Clara Foundation. The studio was restored. Her paintings hung with reverence. I lived upstairs, surrounded by her spirit. My revenge was not a fiery explosion, but a quiet, beautiful garden I built from the ashes of my old life. And in that garden, for the first time, I was finally, peacefully, and completely free